Alrighty. Today I want to talk a little bit about the overlap of psychedelics and meditation. Um, there's a biotech company out of the UK that just had an IPO this week for, I believe they're the farthest along as far as getting FDA approval for a compound for psilocybin, which is the chemical that is in magic mushrooms, or psychedelic compound in magic mushrooms. And so they would be bringing this to market for treatment-resistant depression. And the studies that have come out for the effects of psilocybin, psychedelics in general, really, but I think the most work has been done on psilocybin. They've been, extremely successful. The success rates for the treatment is just, unheard of, basically, in the medical community. And they've done that for terminal cancer patients, depression, probably a few other issues as well. And they're from my experience, having done magic mushrooms as well as having meditated quite a lot, and experienced these parallels of the non-dual state, if you will. They're basically completely, or perfectly overlapping each other, whereas meditation can take months or years, as far as the process of manually turning off or dissolving our default mode network in the brain. Mushrooms do that in about a 2 or 3 hour span of the trip, or whenever you take them. And the similarities are pretty uncanny and obvious between the two, as far as what you go through personally with that, in a mushroom trip, as well as going through meditation. Meditation is obviously done at your own pace, and it's a lot cleaner, I guess I would say. Whereas mushrooms is basically is forced through a drug, so you're don't have an option with it. You're getting pulled for the ride whether you want to or not. That can be very uncomfortable and very challenging, depending on what you've got going on inside of your brain, what you're working with your particular programming, your particular story of me, and how resistant it is to being dissolved. And for some people that's not successful, and you have bad trips, and your ego or self, or whatever you want to call it, is capable of fighting off even mushrooms, which is pretty impressive, actually, when you think about it. But you are under attack, basically, by mushrooms, and through meditation. It's the same thing of shining a light, basically, on all the unconscious, self-referential garbage that is the default mode network, or the ego, this machine of the self, the me, that protective animal inside of us that goes on autopilot, that keeps us separated from this world, that keeps us protected in a certain sense, although not generally in a helpful way. So, the difference with, or the promise I think that comes with psychedelic therapy is that this is the real deal. This is actually cutting to the core of our problem, and it's the same problem that everybody's dealing with. And what we're seeing unfold on a global scale right now is that central false illusion of separation, of the me versus you, this versus that, as opposed to just one flowing energy or unity or God, if you want to use so dirty a word. So yeah, I mean, I think traditionally the way that we've gone about, the way that we go about burying this kind of sense of unease that is part and parcel of the human being right now, is through suppressing it. And we do that through a variety of ways that I've mentioned. And antidepressants traditionally, kind of just mask problems, or, that we go for symptom management, or, there's anxiety, so get rid of that. There's depression, get rid of that, and it just kind of cover it up and numb it and don't talk about it and push it under the mattress, whatever. I don't think that's the right analogy, but you know what I mean. Basically just it's an avoidance and it's a suppression, and that's kind of how we go about dealing with this issue. Whereas meditation and psilocybin work by basically gradually stripping off this protective layer of the ego, of the self, which is where all of these problems ultimately derive from in the first place. So, one method keeps us safe and it keeps things relatively easy. We can avoid the hard stuff, the difficult stuff that people don't generally want to tackle head on. Whereas with meditation and mushrooms, you're cutting right to the root of how this self gets created, how the ego is made, and how it gets unmade. And that's borne out by the results. Obviously, if you go down that hard path and you deal with these issues, then that creates a lasting true kind of peace, and that's shown by the results from both mushrooms as well as meditation in terms of their long-term effects, and just the way in which the ease of being that you have, and your general joy of living. These are true solutions and real answers. This is not bullshit. This is not taking a pill every day. This is not masking things and avoiding it. This is stepping up to life, stepping up to the deep-rooted and uncomfortable issues that almost everybody's got inside of them to one degree or another, and ripping them out, and that's that can be very brutal to go through. But the truth hurts, as they say. So yeah, and this isn't just borne out by your personal experience as far as going through meditation and taking mushroom trips, and it's shown, as I outlined in the book, as far as the effects neuroscientifically on the default mode network, and they're basically the same. We invest so much energy moment by moment that just gets lost going into our residual story of me, this protective layer that we have around ourselves that keeps us safe, and it keeps us saying the right thing, it keeps us not quite doing what we mean or not quite living the way we would dream to, but it keeps us navigating through this what I would call kind of a miserable, risk-free, sterile corporate existence that we've made for ourselves. It basically turns us into robots. It's not creative. It's not spontaneous. It's not joyful. Even it's just safe in it. And that's a choice that we can make, like anything else, whether we want to live that way. I think that's ultimately what we're confronting at this moment, as far as COVID and our species going through what it's going through. Whether we are able to accept risk, and whether we are able to accept the hard truths of life, that there is death, that there is there is challenge, there is loss, and there is birth and life, and that's how it goes. There's ups and downs. But we don't really want to do that. We don't want to accept the ephemeral nature of reality, how it's always shifting, it's always moving, it's never certain, it's not under control. It's just sort of a flowing energy that's can't be held, it can't be made secure. It doesn't work that way, and that's the nature of life. It flows, it changes, and our job is not to fight against that, which our mind and ego does, both individually and collectively. Our job is to let life win, to adapt ourselves to that, rather than try to make the world work the way we want it to. And so that is ultimately how meditation and psychedelics work. It's returning to that natural state. It's flowing with that one energy, as opposed to fighting or swimming against the current. And that's the there is some residual effects to psychedelics or psilocybin that endure months or a long time after, and I think that's due to the kind of the naturalness of it. I think some part of the brain gets that this is true, gets that this is difficult but ultimately correct. For terminal cancer patients especially, it's kind of just like a relaxation of just, this is the way things this is the way things are. And it's sort of irrefutable. And so, by meditation is this manual reset of the brain to that natural state. And I think psychedelics offer a lot of promise in terms of giving people a glimpse of that, because it can be hard to trust in meditation and trust in this process, even when it's laid out as simply as it can be, even when it's given scientific proof. Seeing is believing. So while psychedelics might not give you a long term, or they will not, they're most likely not. I don't think I've heard of anybody ever creating or becoming enlightened by permanently by doing mushrooms. It at least gives your brain a reference point. It gives you something to say, oh, like that's what is possible. Or that's what is already the case when we stop covering up our mind, covering up our experience with our filter or our sense of self. So yeah, I see that as being, at this point, basically unavoidable. That we're gonna, I think our species is a little bit too far, too far out of balance to come back without some, help from these, natural drugs like psychedelics that kind of remind us of what we once were and what we can be again. So I see that being used in tandem with meditation. Psychedelics giving you a glimpse of what is possible and what can be done, and then using meditation to change our brain permanently. The brain is plastic and malleable, especially so with this process, and this can be done, and it's very straightforward and doable. And I think psychedelics have come around at just the right time, where we're going to need them, and we're going to need to do a lot of healing and looking inside of ourselves, and ultimately making this shift away from the ego and the separation that is basically killing the world, and back towards a oneness and a connection and a world of love and cooperation, as opposed to what we've got right now. So, I see these two things as being the crucial components that will make this transformation possible going forward. Yeah, the only way out is through, I think, is how the quote goes. Or maybe I just made that up, I don't know. I think that's about it for today. I'm trying to do some more videos coming up. I've been a little bit lazy the past few weeks, but see you guys.